So today is Saturday, September the 17th. It's about 3:35 in the afternoon. I'm here with Dr. Tony Costa. Apparently the Muslim community has decided to have an appreciation rally for the school board because, of course, they're having Sharia and that's okay with them. So I'm here with Dr. Tony Costa. Take it away.
Well, they are here to show appreciation to the Toronto District School Board. That's wonderful, but appreciation for what? They're appreciating the fact that the TDSB allows them to use school property paid by the taxpayers of Toronto for religious purposes on school time. These rights are not afforded to Christians, Jews, Sikhs, Hindus, Buddhists. These rights are not given to Christians during Christmas time. When Christians want to have Christmas pageants, they're not permitted because that's a religious holiday. They're not allowed to say Merry Christmas. They're not allowed to say anything that is religious. They're encouraged to say season's greetings, happy holidays. Well, why is that? Well, because there's no place for religion in the public schools. But what we see here is a contradiction. The TDSB says no to Christianity, no to Christmas, but yet we allow imams to come into a cafeteria in one of the schools, and they will convert the cafeteria into a makeshift mosque where an imam comes and leads the prayers. Well, that sounds like religion to me, and this is done during school hours, which is a violation of the Ontario Education Act. What goes on as well during these prayers is there is a segregation that goes on between the sexes. So you've got the men in the front, or the boys in the front, then you have the girls in the second row, and then you have menstruating girls at the back in the third row. And so imagine if a teacher in the Toronto District School Board said, okay, boys, you're going to sit on the front of the class. Girls, you're going to sit in the second row of the class. And who's menstruating here? Well, you girls, you get to sit right at the back by the wall. Well, that teacher wouldn't have a job very long at the Toronto District School Board. That teacher would be fired based on sexual discrimination and inequality. But yet this goes on Fridays in this mosqueteria, and it is known by the Toronto District School Board, and they're not doing anything about it. So what we have here is we have a multi-faith coalition made up of Jews and Christians, and most Jews, Christians, and Hindus. We also have some Muslims on our side. We also have Buddhists and others. What we're doing here is we're saying to the school is you've got to stop allowing this. This is allowing a very dangerous precedent in the schools, and this is something that you're not permitting others to practice. So this is a gross violation of the law. We want it to stop, and we don't want to allow this type of discrimination to go on. And so we feel that by having this coalition, we're bringing attention not only to the city, but we're also bringing attention to the Toronto District School Board to cease with this immediately and show equality and fairness to all people, and stand up for the Canadian way, which is to respect the freedom of all peoples and religions and so forth. So that is our desire here today.
Thank you, Dr. Costa. But one of the arguments that Muslims make in the community is that because the school is predominantly Muslim,
yes, that
the school is actually accommodating them simply for the fact that if they were to go to a mosque during lunch break or what have you,
yes,
that there's an issue of safety, there's an issue of truancy, they may return to school late.
Yes.
So the argument is that the school board is doing them a service by accommodating them.
Yes, well, that argument doesn't wash for several reasons. First of all, back in the 90s and 80s, when the school population was overwhelmingly Christian, they still got rid of the Lord's Prayer. Why did they get rid of the Lord's Prayer?
Keep going.
If the majority of the student body was Christian. Well, that doesn't wash. The majority doesn't win here, not in this particular case. Now, in terms of the mosque being far from the school and the students, their security is in question and they're not going to get back safely, etc. What was happening was when they did have a bus take them to the mosque, what was happening was most of these students were going off to the malls. They weren't even going to the prayers. They're running off to the malls and not coming back to school. But at the bottom level here, what we see is that this is not the responsibility of the school. This is the responsibility of the parents. If the child leaves the school, then they should look into getting a shuttle service, making sure somebody is there to count heads, how many are in the bus and how many come back. And so they're imposing something on the school system which is not right, which should not be there from the start. We wouldn't expect this from anyone else. And so really that argument, I think, is a very weak argument. The school is responsible for the children when they're there in school property. They should not be responsible if they decide to go somewhere else. If that's an issue, then parents should look into hiring a service, a shuttle bus, and make sure there's someone responsible to make sure the kids who leave are the same kids who come back.
Okay, Dr. Costa, would you say that the actions of the TDSB are legal or illegal from your perspective? Because why are they being permitted then to allow this?
They are arguing that the Ontario Human Rights Code and the Charter of Rights and Freedoms allows them to accommodate this. This is totally wrong. The Charter of Rights and Freedoms, the Ontario Human Rights Code allows the accommodation of religion in the sense that we allow religious freedom. We don't tell Muslim women they can't wear their hijab. If a person wants to take a religious holiday off work or off school, they're permitted to do so. We can accommodate them. We can allow them to take their own holidays during the regular work year, school year. But what they're doing here is, in accommodating them in this respect, is they're violating the Education Act of Ontario, which is a provincial legislation. And this was brought into effect back in the early 90s when the Ontario Court of Appeal, the highest court in Ontario, ruled that we're not supposed to have religious services during school time. So in effect, what we find here is not only a violation of the Education Act of Ontario, we find here a gross contravention of the order of the Court of Appeal, the Ontario Court, the highest court in Ontario. So our question is, where are all the politicians enforcing this law that was passed it has been decided by the highest court in Ontario? Why is this now happening? And why only with Muslims? Why not with anyone else? So what we see here really is really at bottom level, it's a politically correct case of discrimination.
Mm-hmm. And would you say, Dr. Costa, that Sharia has actually arrived in Toronto, Canada?
That which? Sorry?
That Sharia law has arrived in Toronto, Canada?
I would say it has at a grassroots level. Mm-hmm. And it begins from the bottom up, and it begins slowly. And so if we don't take care of it now, I think our Prime Minister alluded to this when he dealt with Islamicism. If we don't deal with it now, we are going to be facing a giant in a number of years, and it's going to be our children and our grandchildren who are going to pay the price.
And what would you say to those that will be watching this video in terms of what they can do to bring this to the forefront in the community and to be involved?
What I would recommend they do, first of all, is contact the director of the Toronto District School Board, Mr. Chris Spence. Send him letters. Send letters to your trustees of the school board. You're a taxpayer. This is where your tax money is going to. Contact your MPPs and let them know about this. And so the only way you will stop this is from a political legal level, and therefore it's high time to contact these administrators, these politicians, and get them to uphold the law and enforce the law.
Wonderful. Dr. Costa, you're a minister of the gospel. I noticed that quite often most people in Christendom really are unaware of the actual threat of Islam, or radical Islam as it's called. What's your feelings on that?
I think the major problem here is ignorance. There's a quote in the Bible, in the Old Testament, Hosea chapter 4, verse 6, where God says, "My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge." Mm-hmm. And lack of knowledge does bring destruction in many ways, mentally, physically, spiritually, etc. And I think that there is a gross sense of ignorance in the church today. Mm-hmm. The church is, for the most part, asleep in the light. Mm-hmm. The church is not doing her job of being a light to the world, salt to the earth, being the witnesses that Christ has called her to be in the Great Commission. Mm-hmm. And so therefore, since Christians are asleep in the light, they don't understand the threat. It's like the proverbial frog that is placed into the water, into the flask, and if you slowly begin to heat the water, it doesn't notice it at first, and by the time it notices it's on its way it's dying. Mm-hmm. And so the church, similarly, I think is like the proverbial frog in the water, doesn't realize that there's a flame under that water and that it's going to kill it. And so I think that Christians have to wake up to this very serious threat. Our Prime Minister has made it very clear And it's high time that the Church of Jesus Christ also comes to realize this. We don't hate Muslims. Christians love Muslims. Jesus taught, unlike others, Jesus taught, love your enemies and do good to those who despitefully use you. Pray for those who insult you. And so Christians are called to love their enemies, to do the impossible, to do that which is so contrary to human inclination, to love the very ones who want you dead. And so my position is I love Islam, Muslims, and Islam to me means basically I sincerely love all Muslims, and I really do in that respect. I don't like the ideology, I don't like the philosophy, but I do love Muslims for the sake of Christ.
Wonderful. And what would you say to those Muslims that are actually watching this video? I appreciate what you just said, and pretty well you probably said it all. Is there anything in addition you'd like to say to them? Because again, any criticism of Islam is really an offense to them in many cases.
Yes, indeed. The Quran says in Surah 33, it is not for the believer when Allah and His Messenger have decided on a matter for the believer to have any opinion on the matter. In other words, there is no critical thinking. You cannot question the Quran, the Hadith. You cannot question the authority of Islam. And so therefore, what I would say to the Muslims is that we're not out here to say that we hate you. Christians do not hate Muslims, even though the Quran does call on Allah to curse Christians. It says that we have gone astray. It says that the Jews are the closest in enmity against the Muslims. We love you, and our concern is for your well-being. We want to see you come to the light in Christ. We want to see you saved. We believe that you should have the freedom to leave Islam, which you're not permitted to have under Sharia law. But we're not here to force convert you. We're not here to proselytize you by force. We're here to say that we love you. We can live together. But the moment you start upholding Sharia law, it's very clear Sharia law is against the most basic human rights that we all, that Westerners hold dear.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Costa, for those wonderful words. For those that would be interested in knowing more about you and your background, where could they find this information?
Well, they can just go to my website, which is tonycosta.webs.com. So it's Tony Costa, all one word, .webs.com.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Costa, for your time. We appreciate that. And so Dr. Costa was here today at Toronto District School Board to support the community and to bring attention to Islam. Thank you very much, and God bless.
Thank you so much for this time. God bless.